Hello everybody, welcome to the video. My channel name is College Football Frenzy, where I talk about all things college football. I like streaming college football games. I like making predictions with college football. I make my own rankings for college football, and I just talk about all sorts of stuff college football overall. I figured that I would start out the channel by making a top 25 ranking. Uh, Listen, the college football season right now, it's very far away. It doesn't start until early September. It may be postponed due to the coronavirus. Obviously, that's a big thing. Many spring football practices have already been canceled to the public. So we might not see college football for a very long time. Hopefully the season doesn't get postponed, but most of the recruiting for 2020 has been done. Most people kind of have a feeling of how the season is going to go next season, at least in terms of who's going to be good, who's going to be bad, which teams are losing a lot of players, which teams are gaining a lot of players back. Which teams have great recruiting classes. So based on those categories, I'm going to make my own ranking system. I'm going to start from 1 and go to 25. As I go down the list, it gets a little bit more interesting. I feel like the top of the list are the teams you see every year in the race, but as you go down, it gets a little bit more interesting. Teams that might not have a shot at the national championship, but could make some noise. So I'm gonna start right away. I'm gonna start with 1, like I said, and make my way down to 25. And at the end of the video, I'll mention some honorable mentions. 1, I have Clemson. So Clemson was a no-brainer. They lost the national championship last year. Looking at the roster they're going to have this upcoming season, it looks fantastic. Besides from having one of the best recruiting classes in the nation for 2020, they're going to be loaded with talent that they had in a few years back. It's a lot of experienced talent. For example, Trevor Lawrence, he'll be a Heisman contender. He's coming back for his 3rd year quarterback for Clemson. They also have Travis Etienne coming back. That was a big surprise to me. One of the best running backs in all of college football. He is coming back to the Clemson Tigers. On the defense, you're going to be loaded with both young and older talent. They've got a great coaching staff there with Dabo Swinney at the head coach. He's built an empire. And obviously probably the best coordinator in all of college football, Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator for Clemson. So he's still there. So overall, they have a great football team at Clemson. The only really big pieces they're losing are T. Higgins at the wide receiver position, Tanner Muse at safety, and finally the biggest loss definitely has to be Isaiah Simmons. He might be a top 5 pick at line. He's a linebacker, so losing him might hurt. But overall, they should be pretty good next year. Clemson. I expect them to go 13 now. Number 2, Ohio State University, another no-brainer here. Ohio State lost to Clemson in a great semifinal last year. They probably should have won, just made many mistakes. They are losing more talent than Clemson. That's what makes them at 2. You got Ryan Day at coach, which is great. Kerry Combs, I believe, is coming in at defensive coordinator. So you've got a great coaching staff. But the talent, it's definitely not, in my opinion, not as the same as it was last year. You're losing Chase Young, probably going to be the 2nd pick in the NFL draft. You're losing him at defensive end. You're losing probably maybe a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. It's not maybe even the 3rd pick in the NFL draft. You're losing Jeff Okudah at cornerback, which is tough. So your 2 best players on defense, they're gone. You're also losing J.K. Dobbins. He'll probably be an early 2nd rounder. He's a great running back. Major role in why Ohio State had success on the offense. So they're losing those guys. However, they are getting a lot of weapons back. Most notably, they're getting Justin Fields at the quarterback position back. He had a great first year at Ohio State. He came from the transfer portal from Georgia, now at Ohio State. He had a great first year at Ohio State, was fantastic. He's coming back, definitely going to be in the Heisman conversation for this upcoming season. Great QB. He has a lot of weapons to throw to, too, at the wide receiver core, like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. So that's probably the biggest role for Ohio State this year. He'll probably be the best player on that team, most outstanding player. He was a Heisman finalist this past season, and I expect him to be another Heisman finalist come next year. Number 3. Number 3, I have Alabama. Alabama is another no-brainer. No surprise about them at all. Very good football team. Great coaching staff, obviously. Got Nick Saban there at head coach. He's built a dynasty there. But when we look at the roster on the offense, they are losing some guys. They're losing Tua Tagovailoa, obviously. That's the main loss at the quarterback position. Probably going to be a top 5 pick. They're losing Henry Ruggs, the third wide receiver, and Jerry Jeudy, their 2 best wide receivers. So they're losing those guys. On the defense, mainly it's Xavier McKinney, I believe, who they're losing. Besides from that, there's not too many big losses. You know, you still are going to have a decent wide receiver core. Devonta Smith is returning at the running back position. Najee Harris, he was a great player last year. He'll be returning. At defense, Dylan Moses and some other guys are returning. And at the quarterback position, it's going to be between Mac Jones and Bryce Young for the starting job. Bryce Young's a 5-star recruit. Mac Jones is a little bit more experienced, had a few starts this past season. So we'll see who wins that job. Overall, though, Alabama should definitely be in the race for the playoff. I expect them to make the playoff. Definitely a better season than this past season. And they still had a good season this past season. Just a couple of losses kept them out of the playoff. But overall, I like where Alabama's at. They have a tougher schedule this upcoming season, so they probably can't afford to lose without being automatically thrown out of that playoff discussion. Right now, though, they're in a good spot. 4, I have the University of Georgia. Another no-brainer here, an SEC team that I really like. Georgia, they lost Jake Fromm at the quarterback position. Most notably, though, they lost offensive tackle Andrew Thomas. He'll probably be a top 10 pick. And they lost DeAndre Swift, one of the best running backs in all of college football. Georgia's known historically to have great running backs. Losing him might hurt a little bit. Their defense is still very good. It's loaded with talent. According to 24/7 Sports, actually, Georgia has best recruiting class coming in 2020, so that definitely helps. On the offense, I believe Lawrence Cager, he was a great wide receiver last year. He's coming back. But I think the biggest piece that they're adding that people have been talking about is Fromm's replacement. And it's most likely going to be Jamie Newman, quarterback from Wake Forest. He entered the transfer portal, went to Georgia. I think he's a very versatile quarterback. He can run the football. He can pass the football. Fromm was mainly only a passing quarterback, couldn't run very well. So that will definitely help Georgia. Number 5, I have Oregon. So Oregon is going to have a great defense next year. Most of their defensive production's returning, which is very good. Their offense, most of those guys are returning as well. Their biggest loss is obviously Justin Herbert. Great quarterback, probably a top 10 pick. So he is leaving. That might be tough on them. But still, they're going to have a great offensive line. Penei Sewell, who won, I believe, the Offensive Lineman of the Year award, he's returning. And they've got a lot of weapons. So still, if you're an Oregon fan, definitely got a lot to look forward to. Oregon's in a very good position right now. I like where they're at. I think they can win the Pac-12 this upcoming season pretty easily. They won this past season as well, and a Rose Bowl. So Oregon's doing big things up there. Mario Cristobal is a great coach. I have them at 5 right now. 6, Penn State. Penn State's another great football team. I put them just behind Oregon just because of the fact I'm a little bit, their defense is good. I don't know if it's as good as Oregon's defense, and their offense, I feel like they have fewer weapons. But still, overall, Penn State's a pretty good team. Their biggest loss was KJ Hamler, very speedy wide receiver, huge weapon. He's gone to the draft, I believe. They're still going to have at quarterback Sean Clifford, which is good. At running back, I believe Journey Brown's returning, which is good. So they're still going to have a pretty good quarterback and a pretty good running back, but their best wide receiver is leaving. Expect the biggest target for Sean Clifford to be probably tight end Pat Freiermuth. He went to him quite a lot this past season, and with KJ Hamler out, I would expect a lot of targets to Freiermuth. On the defense, I believe Micah Parsons is still there. They've got a pretty talented defense. So right now, I have them at 6. Again, I feel like Oregon gets the 5 just because, they have, I feel like, more weapons and also just a slightly better defense. 7, I have LSU. So the defending national champion is at 7. Why? Because they're losing just about everybody who was great on that team last year. And, I really mean it. I mean, they're losing so many players that were so great. Obviously, Joe Burrow may have had the single best season ever for a quarterback. He came out of nowhere. He was just incredible. Obviously, he was a backup at Ohio State. He was okay last year. Now I think fantastic. And then this year at LSU, just incredible and very incredible. It's amazing how he's transitioned. So he's gone and going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Also on the offense, they're losing running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Watch that game against Alabama. He was a huge reason why they won. So they're losing him. That might be tough. At the wide receiver core, they're losing Thaddeus Moss, and they're also losing Justin Jefferson. So two tough losses there. On the defense, they're losing a lot of guys, most notably Grant Delpit. So they're losing a lot of their offensive and defensive production. And they're also losing their two coordinators. They lost Joe Brady, I believe, to the Carolina Panthers. He was the offensive coordinator at LSU. And they're losing their defensive coordinator, David Aranda, to the Baylor Bears. He's going to be the head coach there. So two tough coordinator losses as well. What you still have there, you still got Ed Orgeron as head coach. He's a great head coach. I believe he won the Coach of the Year award last year. And you've got a pretty good quarterback, Miles Brennan. I don't expect him to live up to Joe Burrow. He's probably going to be the average LSU quarterback we've seen before the Burrow years. LSU never really had a fantastic quarterback. They usually really relied on that defense up until this season. It was all about their offense this season. That usually does not happen for LSU. LSU in the past has been a pretty, defensive team in the SEC. I expect them to kind of transition to that again for this upcoming season, better on the defense. But overall, they lost a lot of guys, so I have them at 7. 8, University of Florida. Florida didn't have too many losses. Their main losses that they did have were Lamico Perine at running back, although they don't really run the ball that much, so that's not a huge loss. And C.J. Henderson. I would say that's probably the biggest loss. C.J. Henderson at cornerback. So they're losing him. But aside from that, most guys are staying. They're going to have a pretty good defense, a pretty good offense, great coach with Dan Mullen. Their schedule's pretty manageable. I think they could definitely go like 11-1 with just that one loss to Georgia. You got a great quarterback in Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts at tight end. Big weapon there. So right now I like where Florida's at. I have them at 8. 9, Notre Dame. So Notre Dame, independent team, they went 11-2 this past season. I think that's pretty good. They had 2 losses to Georgia and they got blown out at Michigan. They were actually both road losses. This upcoming season, 2 tough games again. Neutral site game against Wisconsin and home against Clemson. Those are the 2 tough games. I think at least 10-2 for Notre Dame. I would say they've got a good chance to win that Wisconsin game. Looking at the talent, I feel like Notre Dame did lose a lot of that offensive production. They lost wide receiver Chase Claypool and tight end Cole Kmet, but they still have Ian Book coming back at quarterback, which will help them a lot. He's experienced, so I have him at 9. 10, I have Oklahoma University. Oklahoma is not known for their defense. That's hurting them. But even worse this year, I feel like they're losing a lot of that offensive production. They're still highly ranked just because we know Lincoln Riley teams usually do well, at least when it comes to quarterbacks. And the Big 12 is pretty weak, so I think they'll be okay. But that defense isn't very great, and they did lose a lot of offensive weapons, most notably CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver core, and of course Jalen Hurts, the quarterback. He's gone. For a quarterback next year, it's probably going to be Spencer Rattler, also possibly Tanner Mordecai. That will be the QB battle. Any quarterback fits well into Lincoln Riley's system, it seems like. He's coached 3 fantastic quarterbacks these last few years. So it's not really a huge problem losing Jalen Hurts, but still you're losing your best wide receiver. So that might hurt them a little bit. But overall, Oklahoma, they're a pretty good football team usually. Their offense, they're still gonna probably be pretty good, and I think they can tear up the Big 12. At least most of its teams. The Big 12 is kind of weak, but definitely Oklahoma took a step back this year, but still pretty good team overall. 11, I have Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, they lost Jonathan Taylor. I think he was their best player by far last year. Great running back, one of the best running backs in all of college football, if not the best. So losing him is going to hurt. You have Jack Cohen at quarterback, and you have a pretty good defense. So those are the 2 good things. Their recruiting class for Wisconsin's not very good. That's going to hurt them. But overall, your defense is good, and you have a pretty good quarterback, at least for the Big Ten. So I like where they're at right now. The Big Ten West is a little bit unpredictable, but I would not be surprised if we see Ohio State and Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game again next season. 12, I have Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State is a great football team. They can run the ball very well with Chuba Hubbard. Their defense is not great. They have a great coach, though, with Mike Gundy. And yeah, just expect mainly them running the ball. 12 might be a little high. I don't think they were in the final top 25 this past season, but I like where they stand right now. Their schedule is pretty easy. Most of the Big 12 teams won't give them too much of a challenge. It's really only Texas and Oklahoma that they probably will lose to. So I like where they're at right now, having them at 12. 13, Minnesota. So Minnesota has a lot of their production returning, at least on the offense. Their defense is okay, but on the offense, you're going to have Tanner Morgan returning at quarterback, Mohamed Ibrahim returning at running back, and Rashad Bateman returning at wide receiver. Some of their best players all returning. And PJ Fleck, he's back there at coach. They had a great season last year, finishing 11-2. They surprised Penn State and they surprised Auburn in their bowl game. So overall, it was a great season for Minnesota. I think 13 is reasonable. The Big Ten West, like I said earlier, it's wide open. But now 13. 14, Auburn, so the team that lost to Minnesota during bowl season this past season. Auburn, pretty good football team. Bo Nix, I think he's evolving. Going to be a true sophomore quarterback this upcoming season. We'll see how he does. I think he'll be more experienced. Auburn's not going to have as tough as a schedule, which is good. Their schedule is very hard last year. They're not going to have to play Oregon or they're not going to have to play Florida. So they're dropping the Oregon and Florida games, which is good. So it's going to be a little bit easier. They still, though, have to play, obviously, LSU, Alabama, and Georgia, which is tough. But overall, the talent, they're not losing too many guys. They have a top 10 recruiting class, I believe. Their biggest loss, I would say, is Derek Brown at defensive tackle. He could be a top 10 pick, maybe even a top 5 pick. And also at running back, Jatarvius Whitlow. So the two losses there, but aside from that, they should have a pretty good defense, and their offense should be fine next season. 15, Texas A&M University. Another SEC team here. I have 6 SEC teams overall in the top 15. Texas A&M was kind of overrated last year. They lost every big game. They could not get a big win last season. They finished 8-5. Their best win was Oklahoma State. I would say that was their bowl game, but they didn't play very well in SEC play, and they had a tough schedule. They did a very tough schedule. They're not gonna have to play Clemson anymore out in the out of conference game, which is good. But still, it was a tough schedule. I'll give them a little bit of leeway there, but still overall, I think they could have performed better this past season. Looking at the talent they have, it's okay. I don't think it's anything extremely special. I believe you still have Kellen Mond at quarterback there. Mainly, though, you have Jimbo Fisher at head coach. That's the main reason why I have them ranked so high. You have a great coach, so that's definitely going to help. If they didn't have Jimbo Fisher at head coach, I wouldn't rank them so high. 16, Texas. So Texas, led by Coach Tom Herman, they've kind of been overrated these past few seasons. They disappointed in quite a few games last year, and even the season before. They won the Sugar Bowl, but they had a lot of disappointing games. A lot of games they shouldn't have lost, they did. This upcoming season, I have high hope for them. They have a top 10 recruiting class. A lot of talents returning, including Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. I think a big reason why they didn't do very well last season was because of the injuries. A lot of guys got injured early on the season against like LSU and Oklahoma State. I think that hurt them a lot. If they can stay away from the injuries, I think they should be fine for this upcoming season. And Oklahoma's getting a little bit weaker. A lot of the Big 12, like Baylor's getting weaker as well. So Texas, this might be their year to win the Big 12. We'll see. I think maybe like a 9-3 or 10-2 season for the Longhorns this upcoming season. 17. North Carolina. So North Carolina, led by Mac Brown, former coach actually of Texas. He won a national championship there. Great head coach. They're doing a lot of great recruiting there. They have a great quarterback already in Sam Howell. He could be, a potential sleeper for at least a Heisman finalist. You never know. Besides from Lawrence and Fields, the Heisman race, it's wide open. So we'll see, how he does that next year. But the offense looks pretty good at North Carolina. I think a lot of the they have a lot of returning production overall. I think the defense will be okay as well. And you've got a great coach in Mac Brown. And if they're not great next year, they will in 2021 because they have a great recruiting class coming in then. I believe they're ranked 4th right now in the 2021 college football recruiting rankings. 18, I have Michigan. I'm not overrating Michigan this year. Every year everybody has Michigan like in the top 15 or in the top 10. It's just not happening. Harbaugh disappoints every year. Now, obviously, they're losing the Ohio State game. That's a guarantee. There's no game in college football that's more certain than that Michigan Ohio State game. Arkansas has a better chance of beating Notre Dame for all I care next season than Michigan does to beat Ohio State. That's how unlikely it is for Michigan to beat Ohio State, and it's just true. It's just true. They're not going to beat them. Harbaugh teams can never beat Ohio State, and especially when it's in the horseshoe at Ohio State. You look at their talent, though. Besides from the Ohio State game, you look at their talent. They have a lot of the talent returning. I don't know how Harbaugh how he'll do with it. They are losing quarterback Shea Patterson, but Joe Milton's coming in. He should be good as well. They're losing a couple wide receivers, but some others are returning. Tight end Nick Eubanks is returning as well. And they're going to have a pretty good defense. So, roster-wise, the team looks okay. But from what we've seen in the past, Harbaugh teams, even with talent, don't work well. So, I have them at 18 right now. I'm not going to overrate them. 19, Boise State. This is a team that's in the top 25 purely because of reputation. I don't like to put a team in the top 25 purely because of reputation, but it's Boise State, the giant killer. They always are a good team. They're in the Mountain West, not a great conference, but they've been known to upset good teams. They've beaten, ranked teams before in Power 5 conferences. They're a very good football team. They finished overall on the season 12-2 last year. Not bad. They finished inside the top 25, I believe. They lost to Washington their bowl game. This upcoming season, I think it's going to be a pretty similar team. You have Hank Bachmeier returning at quarterback. Pretty good team overall, I think. Boise State, but again, mainly it's because of the reputation. I imagine they'll tear up the Mountain West again. 20, Iowa State. Iowa State did pretty good last year. They had a lot of chances to upset some very good teams. They barely lost to Iowa. They barely lost to Oklahoma. It came down to a 2-point conversion. And they beat Texas. So they had a few games that they very well could have won that they lost. And they had a game where they upset a team. So they were a very good football team last year. They actually almost beat Baylor as well. So they were just a few plays away from maybe being only a 2-loss team. They're a very good football team, and the Big 12 is getting weaker for the most part, so I have Iowa State at 20 right now. 21, I have USC. Listen, Southern California, people like to rank them high in the AP poll. I don't know why. They always get a ton of votes in the AP poll to be ranked when they shouldn't be. I'm not going to overrank them, kind of like I'm not going to overrank Michigan. The FBI for ESPN has them all the way at 13. I think that's way too high. They have a terrible recruiting class. You have to face it. They have a terrible recruiting class coming in this season. People are high mainly on the talent that's experienced there. That's why they're excited for USC. But I'm just not buying it. I think Slovis is a pretty good quarterback, but not anything extremely special. And USC's schedule is also brutal. It's terrible. You look at their schedule, the second hardest schedule in all of college football. They have to play Washington, they have to play Oregon, they have to play Notre Dame, and they have to play Alabama. That's a very tough schedule. And Utah and Arizona State, those could be losses as well. So USC is going to have a tough schedule. But I'll rank them as a 21st best team in the nation. But Clay Helton's got to get his act together. He's got to coach a little bit better because when your name is Southern California, and you bring in like 10 or 11 recruits, I think that was what he brought in for this season. That's just terrible. I mean, they should be getting like 25, 30 recruits every year. It's Southern California. It should be easy for them, but for some reason it's not. Anyway, number 22, Virginia Tech. I like what Virginia Tech did this past season. They nearly made the ACC championship game against Clemson, came one game short. They lost to Virginia the last week of the season, knocking them out of the race. They were ranked for 1 week this past season. I'm looking at their schedule coming up this upcoming season. It looks pretty manageable besides from Penn State, but overall they have a lot of talent. I'm excited for Virginia Tech. I think they're a very serious contender for the ACC Coastal Division, obviously along with UNC. 23, Arizona State. Arizona State, they obviously knocked off Oregon last year, a huge upset. They finished overall 8-5. I looked at their season. The start of the season was fantastic. They were ranked for many weeks. The end of the season was pretty good as well. It was just the middle of the season. They had a big slump in the middle of the season where they lost 5 games. So that was tough for them. But overall, their season was pretty good. And they've got a great coach with Herm Edwards. So I like where they're at right now. I have them at 23. 24, Cincinnati. Cincinnati finished, I believe, 11-3 on the season. And if you look at their losses, 1 was to Ohio State and 2 were at Memphis. Both ranked teams, very hard matchups. And the two Memphis ones were very close. The Ohio State one wasn't, but the Memphis ones were close. So overall, Cincinnati did great last season. I think the talent in the American Athletics getting weaker for the most part, besides for like teams like Cincinnati and UCF maybe. But Memphis losing Norvell, that's going to hurt them. I think Cincinnati has a golden opportunity to win the conference next season. You've got a great coach there with Luke Fickell. He's helping the program out a lot. I would not be surprised if they make like the Fiesta Bowl next season or maybe the Cotton Bowl. 25, so the final team in this ranking. I decided to add Iowa. Now, Iowa was in the rankings last year. They finished, I believe, as a top 20 team, maybe even the top 15 team. They had a lot of talent, and they don't have that as much talent this upcoming season. They lost probably their 3 best players. Quarterback Nate Stanley, he was experienced, he's gone. They're losing Tristan Wirfs, he was great, they're gone. And most notably, they're losing AJ Espinosa. I believe he was a defensive end. He's going to be gone, might be a top 15 pick. So they're losing a lot of guys, and the talent they're bringing in is not fantastic. I don't think Iowa's going to be as good as they were this past season. The Big Ten West, like I said, it can be wide open, but I just don't think Iowa's going to be as good. But I do still have them in the top 25 because they have a pretty good coaching staff. As for honorable mentions, Memphis was in an honorable mention. They lost Mike Norvell, though, so that's going to hurt them. App State, I thought about including App State as well. They've been great in the Sun Belt Conference. They're definitely going to be the favorite to win the Sun Belt this upcoming season. Tennessee was definitely an honorable mention. Washington was one I thought about. Utah was one I thought about. And yeah, that's probably it. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. Thank you for joining in. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll probably upload once every few days. But that's it for